So a woman on a sobriety call recently said she had shifted her mindset to take the attitude of life happens for me, not to me. And I'd never heard that before, and I tend to write down and Google everything I hear. So it came up that quote is famously associated with speakers and authors such as Tony Robbins and Byron Katie. And in an incredible coincidence, sobriety, as I like to call it, I hadn't heard of Tony Robbins forever, but only recently did I actually take one of his boot camps. Amazing guy. And then Byron Katie, I literally just heard of yesterday as part of my coaching training. She has a philosophy called The Work, which I will talk more about in the future. And yes, her name is Byron Katie, not Katie Byron. But back to the quote, life happens for me, not to me. Let's say it is a mindset shift that reframes challenges as opportunities for growth rather than personal setbacks. And I talk about my favorite quote all the time, which is, if it doesn't challenge me, it doesn't change me. And that's such a key thing to embrace in sobriety, especially early sobriety. You've got to embrace the tension, embrace the fear, and know that it's going to make you stronger. So that quote, it evokes thoughts of accepting responsibility, focusing on your own reactions and choices, and believing that difficult experiences have a purpose or a lesson to teach us. And I know that all sounds cliche, but I really internalized that thought, and without knowing that quote, but either one of those quotes originally. Luckily, I did hear a motivational speaker talk about embracing the tension, embrace the fear. It'll build resilience, which creates greatness. I've done a video on that, as well as on that challenge quote. And, this one talks about it's a shift from a victim mindset to a growth mindset. Unfortunately, I've heard a lot of people on sobriety calls that seem to have more of a victim disposition. And sadly, their shares tend to always take that theme. And that's one reason I'm eager to start my own community, to really help uplift those people. Because I think sometimes all it can take is that right person to just show you the light and help you focus on what you can control instead of dwelling on what you can't change. That's right out of the old Serenity prayer, which they say at the end of every AA meeting. And I always say how great these meetings are to everyone, whether you have a drinking disorder or not. Everyone can benefit from community and deep thoughts like that, and that's why we in community are the luckiest. And, and we're saying you really do need to have to see challenges as gifts. Example being losing a job, of which I've lost several over the course of my career. And they've always turned out to be blessings. And the very first time out of college, I went to a liberal arts school, so I didn't learn a thing. So I returned to my waiter job while I tried to figure out what I was going to do. And eventually I was working a temp job doing collections, calling on resellers that had overdue payments. It was a horrible job that I hated, but I was good at it. And who knows how long I would have stayed. But there were rumors of them moving the office and people weren't happy about it. And back in those days, I was pretty brazen and I made a little too much noise about it and they found a reason to let me go. And I was pretty bummed out at the time. I was thinking about moving into sales at that reseller, but I'm so glad I didn't. And I was out of work for a while until I eventually found my first sales job. It's a company called Cabletron, which had the greatest sales and technical training, I'm going to say, in the world. This 3-week intensive training that changed my life and helped me make a very nice living for the next 15, 20 years before my alcoholism took over to the point that I've been recovering since and luckily made a good living. But the point is, losing that first job is what opened the door to a new life for me. And I've also talked about having been excused from a sobriety community or two that always led to a better community that brought me up, kind of took the next step in my journey, as we call it. So I've absolutely embraced the quote, life happens for me, not to me, and I hope you can as well. That'll do it. As always, stronger, sober. Please like, share, subscribe. Thanks.